Hey everybody, it's Joe Jonas hanging with Jag.
Hi, this is Carly Rae Jepsen, and you're listening to Jag.
Ryan Seacrest with Jag.
It's B.O.B. So much swag with my homie Jag.
And now, a look at this week in podcasting news. It's the Jag Show podcast.
Welcome in. I am John Jagay, back from vacation last week, but as I tell all of my clients, that's not the stuff you put at the beginning of your show. Save that for the end, so more on that later. Naturally, the biggest podcast news of the year came while I was away, so let's get right to it. Apple is revamping their Apple Podcast platform. As always, James Cridland from Pod News did an excellent job of breaking it all down. That is linked in today's show notes. But here are my key takeaways. For podcast listeners, you'll be able to group shows by category, and the new Smart Play button will automatically know which episode to start you with on a new show. For example, the first episode of Serial versus the most recent episode of The Daily. The biggest changes, though, are for podcast creators. Apple's going to be rolling out a subscription model that will allow you to charge users for your podcast. Now get this. Apple is going to take a 30% commission of whatever you charge in year one and then 15% after that. Yikes. They're supposedly also improving the Apple Podcast Connect dashboard, so if you haven't logged in the last 10 days or so, you can hop on over there and accept the new terms of service. And if you're like me and don't read the terms of service, Cridland also spies a mention of Windows and Android. So after all, Google Podcasts are available on iOS. Maybe Apple Podcasts may be coming to Android. We will see. All right, so what do subscriptions in Apple mean for you as a podcaster? Likely, nothing. Think about that for a second. Realistically, for someone to pay for your podcast on Apple, you've got to meet two criteria. One, your podcast needs to be exclusive to Apple so that it can't be found for free somewhere else. And two, your content has to be so good that people are willing to add one more line item to their monthly budget on top of Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, and however other many subscriptions. I don't have the hubris to think that my podcast is that good that you're going to want to pay for it, and I hope you don't have it either. Now, you've heard me say for a while that Apple, despite being first into the podcast space, has become fat and lazy. Well, it would have been hard to screw this launch up any worse than they did last week. Shows disappeared. People couldn't log into their dashboards. People couldn't add new shows, and so many more problems. There is a huge list of bugs that was updated as of Tuesday, linked in today's show notes from transistor.fm. Apple, if you truly want to be a leader in this space, you gotta work out the bugs ahead of a giant launch to the world. And then when problems happen, you shouldn't probably go radio silent for the better part of a week. If you listen very closely, you can hear Steve Jobs rolling over in his grave. Now, for me personally, as recently as of yesterday this week, I was trying to catch up on The Daily and some other shows from being away. My Apple Podcast app wouldn't play them. It seems to be okay today after I restarted my phone and updated the app, but yesterday, I left Apple Podcasts, went over to Spotify to listen to my shows, and I'm sure I am not the only one who did that. Speaking of Spotify, they're also hopping on the monetization train. Following revenue and subscriber gains in Q1 of this year, they're also giving you the opportunity to monetize their show. It is through their Anchor platform. Now, here's the thing. They will not take a cut from you in the first 2 years, and only 5% starting in 2023. Shots fired, Apple. The catch is, though, to pay, listeners are going to have to be rerouted back to the Anchor website, not pay through the app, whether you're on Apple or Android. And creators will have to part ways with credit card processing fees through Stripe or whoever they use. But again, if your show isn't platform specific and it is not worth paying for, is it really worth doing it? And with the debate raging over privacy and Tim Cook saying Apple will share less of your data going forward, how much are you really going to know about your subscribers? That's why Tom Webster of Edison Research says the best thing you can do right now is to get your listeners to subscribe to an email list. His thoughts linked in today's show notes as well. And Evo Terra, he adds, you probably shouldn't have anxiety around these podcast changes. Doesn't mean any real changes for you in the short term. Facebook jumping in on the audio fray last week as well with a suite of what they collectively call social audio. Thanks to Sound Bites, you'll be able to post short audio clips just like you would pics and videos when you update your status. You'll also be able to listen to podcasts within the Facebook app thanks in part to their continued partnership with, you guessed it, Spotify. Facebook, after all, their goal is to keep you inside their app as long as possible. That's why you've noticed there's a web browser in it and so many other things. Facebook also launching an audio version of their Rooms feature. Previously, that had been a video chat version. This ostensibly is coming out to compete with Clubhouse. I'll link to Facebook's press release in today's show notes too. And finally, as I mentioned off the top, my wife and I loaded up the car. We took our pandemic pup to Hilton Head Island last week. Gotta tell you, after both staring at these same four walls for 13 months, it was nice to have a change of scenery, warm weather, walks on the beach. Mainly we got takeout, we masked up in public, and folks down there pretty compliant with masks as well. We were happy to see that. It was a much needed break, and we were able to do it because we both got vaccinated. Please go out and get the shot. These new variants are highly contagious and not to be messed with. In fact, someone in my life actually passed away from COVID complications last night. So please get vaccinated. And as my friend Matt Friedman points out, don't stress your side effects from the vaccine on Facebook. You're scaring people away, the ones that are on the fence. Get the shot. Post about getting the shot and getting back to normal, not about having a fever for a day. As always, until next week, stay healthy and stay safe. Later.
If you like what you just heard, share The Jag Show with someone else who's interested in podcasts. You can also follow The Jag Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit jagindetroit.com.